A lot of folks say lead by example, and that putting forth and having a good example to show folks is providing leadership, and it's not just lead by example that is going to provide leadership, and that visibility only goes so far. There's something to be said about the mentorship that is needed, and that's where, in my mind, leadership comes in. The ability to not just provide, hey, here's where we're going and here's the direction that we're taking things, but to also provide that soft touch and direct discussion to inspire and encourage folks to do more. That's where I think real leadership happens. And I think that's why you saw such reverence for how folks like Steve Jobs would command a stage and explain and instruct about a product and give a little bit of backstory and craft and deliver a message so nicely. He wasn't just giving an example and giving that visibility, but he was doing that soft touch, gentle leading and taking you through the story that provided that technical leadership that we all, in hindsight, very much appreciate, without needing to be overly visible about it, without having to hammer on it again and again and again and be visible and, hey, look at how great the iPhone is, it does blah blah blah. No, he talked through a great story, and that's why so many folks refer back to his videos as examples of how to give a great, not just presentation, but tell a story and lead folks through the introduction of a product. Learning to fail in public kind of evolved from when you work in agile workflows, right? When you're doing Scrum, right? They tell you fail fast, right? If something isn't working, identify that it's not working. It's okay that it's not working, but identify that quickly so that you can pivot and do the next thing. And in my mind, this just kind of evolved out of it, because I was very much in a Scrum agile software development flow with a company that I was working for. And as I started finding my public speaking persona, it became part of what I was what I was looking at as something that differentiated me as a speaker, was that I was going to show you things, and for a time I was purposely putting problems in it. Oh, look, I'm going to go and build this thing, and gosh, see how that doesn't work quite right? You may see this also. Here's how we work around it. Like I literally built in to my presentations problems. So it got me comfortable with it, because I knew the mistake was going to happen. I knew the error, the exception was going to be thrown. And so I was already comfortable with that, because I made that part of how I gave presentations. And then it just kind of evolved into, when I started doing live streams and podcasts, that as I go through and show things and we're figuring things out and learning together, that I was already used to failing and showing that human side. And there are folks out there that do live streaming, that do podcasts, that refuse to be able to deal with that kind of thing. They have a real hard time dealing with when there's a mistake, when there's an error, something in their presentation doesn't go quite right. And that's okay. Those are very polished folks. And there's almost like a hero worship around some of those folks that are out there. And hey, that's great. More power to them. But while they may look up to those other folks, I'm the guy sitting down the hall that I'm going to go and be very relatable. Hey, we're going to go out to the local watering hole and grab a beverage after this and have a good time talking about bowling, our families, and having a good time relating to each other, and being that very relatable person that's also not just down to earth, but easy to talk to and learn from as a mentor. I feel like puts me in a very unique space. I think it's a good quality in a leader to admit your faults, to be able to understand and share that here's things that I struggle with, and to be able to work and show, and not show, and share that, hey, I've been able to work through these and you can too. I think that makes that is a very desirable quality in a leader. I think though it's not required that they show that they have faults. Um, Being extremely polished in what and how you deliver is something that folks absolutely love to see and want to be a part of. But beyond that, beyond and below the surface, you don't know anything about those folks because you haven't seen them deal with adversity. Is that good? Is that bad? If I want to get close to that person, that I think that isn't a great thing. I want to know a little bit about how they deal with adversity, how they, what else is going on besides that uber polished exterior. So I don't think it's required, but for those that I'm going to work closely with, I'd like to see it. It's the constant change. There's a movie that came out in the 80s called Glengarry Glen Ross. And when I was in university, one of my professors said to me that you need to be thinking about this industry like they talked about in Glengarry Glen Ross when they're talking to stockbrokers. They said you need to be doing the ABCs. You need to always be closing. Same thing with the technology field. You need to always be learning, because the only constant in this industry is change. There is constantly evolution. There is constantly change. The speed of that change has accelerated in recent years, and we need to keep up with it. There's lots of really cool and interesting things there. And it feels like going into the toy store every week or two and seeing, hey, look at the cool new things that I get to play with and build stuff with. This is great. Now, some of that might be a little bit too fast for some folks, and that's okay. Like, take time, figure out where that balance is, where it makes sense to engage and make that leap forward. You don't have to be in on every week, every month, every year on a change, but you probably should be in at least once or twice between cars that you buy. Like, you take it at least once every 5 years. Don't let it go 10 years in between looking at and catching up on things. And it's inspiring to see and be able to grow the tools, the products, the little tools that you're working on to help make your life easier. Like, I bought my first 3D printer in December, and I've been learning how to build things with it, and I'm growing and learning more about working in 3D virtual space doing that. And it's a way for me to extend myself and get into new places. And it's just been a blast for me to learn and experiment with. And that's what excites me and it inspires me to push forward in my career. When we talk about some of the security problems that happen out there, the advancement of state actors in how our security has evolved around our applications, around our systems, that evolution really scares me, because it goes from just being some kids that are trying to do something to goof around and almost graffiti, we're going to make this look silly and make you look bad. Ha ha ha. No, these aren't people who are just being malicious. We want to take your money. These are people from another country that want to see you devastated, and that they want to not just bring you down, but hurt you. That's a whole nother level of needing to secure your applications, needing to make sure that you're implementing good coding practices and building your environments in a secure way and providing access to those things and having management and evaluations on them so that you are constantly guarding against the bad guys. That scares me. The level that we've evolved to in the last 10 years. So I would hope that they looked at and tried to replicate how I help as many people as I can, how I try to get out there and really give that helping hand to other folks. There's a lot to be said about leading by helping other folks, getting other technologists, other folks in the industry to assist and grow and multiplying by 10x by empowering more folks. That's where I hope folks, invest their time and go after, because it's so much easier to say yes, I'm going to help folks, than saying no, I'm not going to help and keep some sort of a checklist of here's the folks that I'm not going to work with, here's the technologies that I'm not going to help. And I've run into folks who have put me on a list and said, nope, I'm not going to help Jeff Fritz, and here's the reason why. And like, they have to remember that at some point, because I'm going to come back at some point and say, hey, what can we do? And now, right, those folks have that psychic stress on them, that mental stress of, wait a sec, am I allowed to work with him? Did they do something I don't like and have to figure that out? I don't care whether you did something I like or don't like. If you need a helping hand, I'm gonna extend a hand, and I'm gonna get you pointed in a direction that I think is gonna make you successful. What do I hope folks don't emulate from me? Behind closed doors, I can be a little impatient. I can be a little impatient. And that's something that I work hard on, because it is something that it can frustrate the heck out of you when you're working on something, you're asking for help on something, and it's taking too long to get done something on your timetable, and now what do? That's hard for me. That's something that I work very hard on. And I'm trying to get better every day at it, and I know some days I struggle. But being able to still pay it forward when I need to and when I can, that's where I encourage folks to go. There's not going to be any way to really measure like the complete impact that I've made to charity over years. I've donated funds from my live streams. I've done fundraisers through my live streams. We donated computers to fund and set up a computer lab. We donated Raspberry Pi computers to St. Jude to set up a computer lab with training materials. And I'm never going to see and be able to measure how that turned out. And that's okay. I don't need to see that. I know that there are kids that took home Raspberry Pi computers and were able to learn and had a great time with that opportunity that was extended to them. That's more than enough that I need to know about how we've helped those folks. There's a tote board out there somewhere that lists, here's how much money Fritz has raised and donated to charity. And that's a number. I'm never going to hit numbers that other folks did, but that's a number that I can be proud of. I can stand behind. I don't know what that number is, but I know that it's work that I've done that I've been proud of year in and year out. So is that a legacy I can point back to and be proud of? Absolutely. I know that in the future, at some point, Fritz's grandchildren, great-grandchildren are going to find YouTube videos with great-grandpa sitting behind a camera here with a rainbow beard, wearing a chicken costume, and talking about giving money to kids who have cancer. And they're going to learn all about granddad. That's where I think my legacy is, showing folks that you can have a good time helping others and learning about it too. So I was working for a small .com company, and I was really enjoying mentoring the junior developers that were coming in and getting them up to speed on the product, the technology that we were working on. And I started going and speaking at local user group. I was in Philadelphia. I went out to Delaware. I went out to Harrisburg in the middle of the state and had a good time traveling and talking and meeting other developers. And eventually, I heard about a game show at what was Microsoft's Tech Ed conference. It's now Ignite, but it was the Tech Ed conference, and there was a game show that would be held during lunch on the 4 days of the event. The idea was it was just like Pop Idol, and they called it Speaker Idol, right? So instead of getting up and singing, you gave a 5-minute presentation on whatever topic you wanted. There was a panel of judges, and they would review and give you feedback. And whoever won the first 3 days of the event, right? The first the game show on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday came back on Thursday, and they would decide on a winner. The winner got to come back and give a presentation at Tech Ed, very prestigious show, the next year. So in 2012, I was invited to present at this game show, this Speaker Idol event. And I went into the first day and I lost. I came in second, but I lost. And fortunately, they allowed the best of the second place finishers to come back on the fourth day as kind of a wild card, kind of a secondary finalist. And they invited me back on that fourth day to compete, and I lost again. And that's okay, because it was 2012, and two of the judges that were in the audience were two vice presidents from Telerik, now Progress Software. And they said to me, you speak really good about the product here. I'd love to interview you for a job. And sure enough, I interviewed and got the job, and I started working at Telerik. Well, the next year, I was working for Telerik, and I said, you know what? We already have a booth here at Tech Ed. Maybe I can get into Speaker Idol again. And I went and I said, can I get into Speaker Idol? Absolutely. Come on back. And I did. And day one, I won my heat. Yes, I made the finals and came through to Thursday, and I was the first speaker, and I got up and I hit everything perfectly. I didn't have any errors built into this presentation, and everything went well, and I delivered it, and I felt great about it. And then the next person gets up and they set up their laptop, and they forget to plug in their laptop, and the battery's running low, and it's the low power warning comes up in the middle of their slide presentation, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got this made in the shade. I've got this. And I lost because the judges thought it was great how they recovered from having this technical difficulty. So here's where I didn't have an error built in, and it didn't help me in the end because I was so polished. So I walked away from that event, and oh gosh, I came in second place. And hey, why don't you come to lunch with me? And it's Scott Hunter. And we go to lunch, and he says, you do a really nice job talking about my products and very well polished. Why don't you come work for me? And then I got hired at Microsoft. So I lost a game show twice and got hired at Microsoft for it.